Hello, everyone. Today we're talking to my good friend Savo Kosic, who many people would know from being an MMA champion, but he's also been able to very successfully transfer his skill sets and his mindsets into many different areas, from obviously from professional athletics, to being a champion, to he's got very successful car dealerships in California, and he's moved into coaching and training with hypnosis and NLP, which is where I met Savo. And it's a pleasure to welcome him to the podcast and speak to him about his background and how he views the world in order to be able to transfer your skill sets and mindsets into different areas with success. Savo, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, James, thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
And Savo, you're originally from Montenegro, which is
That's
a
true.
beautiful country. I've had the great pleasure of actually having visited there. Tremendous people, really wonderful people, but very
Mhm.
different from California and from, obviously the U.S. And tell us a little bit about how you grew up there, and and really ended up becoming an MMA champion from Montenegro, which is a much smaller country than the U.S.
Hey, first, since you mentioned Montenegro, I always tell my friends that you're one of the NLP coaches who actually speak my language. When we first met, and you said "Zdravo, kako si," you were speaking my language, and I was so surprised. I was like, how did you learn Serbian? And you always surprise me by the amount of the words that you know. And since you've been there, you spent some time, you know how it's really a beautiful country. I mean, there is no doubt that nature is beautiful, people are very nice and warm. However, economy is not good. You know how communism, all the wars hit that part of the world, and economy is still stagnating, especially now in the times of coronavirus.
Hmm.
When you asked me about my beginnings, and I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, I my dream was to become a fighter, to become a world champion, and that was a big dream. A lot of people told me you can't do that. My trainers at the time, I had asthma, which later on I cured using the techniques that both me and you use, so like NLP and some sorts of hypnotherapy that really helped me cure my physical problem, because we all know that physical problems come from mostly from emotional issues. And when people go to the hospital, they're there because a lot of times they have an emotional problem they're repressing. And as a kid, it was not easy for me. I was saving money for my first pair of gloves, and my parents would give me one Deutschmark at the time, and for that money I was able to buy one sandwich. So I would choose to eat in school only one slice of pizza, so I can save half of that Deutschmark, so that hopefully, I was thinking at the time, in 2 months I can buy my pair of gloves. And then in 2 months, when I saved some money, I was thinking, you know what? I don't know, what am I going to do with gloves if I don't have a punching bag, or a place to work out. Gyms were expensive. I was a kid. I was like 11 years old. So I decided to buy the punching bag. And then I got that punching bag and I put it on my shoulder, and I had to go to the nearest park close to my house. So I would carry that bag, I would hang the bag on the tree, and then I would start punching the bag. And that's how, those were my beginnings. But I did something very interesting, and I think a lot of people do that unconsciously. I was unconsciously modeling one of the best fighters at the time. His
Hmm.
name his name is Mirko Kroka, and he's a very good kickboxer. So what I would do, I would wake up in the morning, I would turn on my videos that I had at the time, and on old cassettes, I would put it in, and I would watch. And I would watch his moves. I would imagine myself being that fighter. I
Hmm.
would. I had dreams about it. And then I would take my bag, this old broken bag, I would carry, hang it on the tree, imagine my opponents, and that the whole process of imagination. And as you said to me very well before this interview, you said you always focus on the future, how you can become better, do things better. And like one very wise man says, his name is Jim Rohn. I think you know who he was. And he says, always work twice as hard on yourself than you do on your job. So at the time, I was really working on myself, becoming something. He also says, if you want to make more, you have to become more than who you are. If you want to make more than what you have. And so those were my beginnings. And a lot of people told me that I can't, that I'm going to fail. My English teacher told me that I'm never going to learn English. My Italian teacher said, you're never going to learn Italian. However, I did learn other languages. I traveled the world. I've done a lot of things they told me you will never be able to.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So that was the beginning of really building, I think, the right mindset, you know, really being able to use your imagination in order to get better.
Yes.
And so when you started, you know, becoming a professional fighter, what was the difference between, um, you know, becoming a champion and then, you know, and people who, you know, were just, you know, maybe they had great skill sets, but the difference, I think, is mental more than physical, because
Yes.
there's a lot of people who are very physically gifted who go into that, but not everybody makes it and becomes a champion.
Well, you know, James, when we talked last time in Florida, you showed me some really good MMA moves. And actually, I never told you this, but when I went back to my hotel room, I sat down and I wrote down exactly what you described to me. And then later on, I tried it, and I can tell you it works really well. It's about, to me, it's about all those little incremental improvements that people make.
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example. I really learned from everybody. Another day, I went to the gym, and that was the only gym that was open. So I wanted to sign because of the corona and all the things that are going on. I said, what great, this is an opportunity. At least I can go lift some weights, and we always feel better after the workout. So I like to go there with my brother. So me and my brother drove to the gym, and we met this guy. He was in a wheelchair, and he was looking great. His upper body, um, he had no fat whatsoever. He looked really, really in shape. And my thoughts, what I was thinking in my head is like, I can't believe someone. I said, this guy must be on steroids, because it's so unnatural. He cannot do cardio. Unfortunately, he can't run. But however, he was so lean. He had lean muscles, and he had a big smile on his face. And I was really glad to talk to that person. And I said,
From 6 feet away, right? From two
yeah,
meters away.
yeah.
You have to
Actually, we
talk
had a
loud.
glass in between. Yeah, but yeah, but that's their way of. Anyway, he said, to me, he said, if you build muscles well enough, and he says, if you do these exercises 3 times a week, you do 10 reps and 3 sets each exercise, you're going to build muscles. And those muscles are going to burn more fat than if you actually do the cardio. He says, do I look like someone who does cardio? And I said, well, no, but you look great. And he said, well, that's the key. So he taught me a lot about, supplements. He said omega-3, you have, glucosamine sulfate, some things that vitamin B, vitamin D, some things that are very important. He talked to me about dosage and everything. I wrote it down, and I can tell you, since I started to apply all these things, I'm starting to feel much better and to have more energy. I think energy is very important.
That's
So,
great. So when you were, you know, obviously concentrating on becoming a champion, becoming a professional fighter,
mhm.
what was the mindset you adopted in order to succeed in that business? It's very tough, obviously, you know,
Yes,
people
yes.
trying to hit you, but
Mhm.
beyond that, there's the everyday training, which I think maybe even in many cases be tougher, mentally, in order to keep it up, to get better all the time, to get to that point. And then after you became a champion, how did you stay there? Because it's one thing to get there, it's another thing to stay there.
Yeah. We well, as I said, it's about incremental improvements. I was looking
Mhm.
every day to improve a little bit. As our teacher says, James, Dr. Richard Bandler, he says, best basketball players do not imagine themselves missing shots. And I was certainly not. I was not imagining myself being knocked out. Later on, I realized that through my coaching practice, what I was actually doing unconsciously in my head. I was imagining every fight. I would see myself winning the fight. I would see myself celebrating after the fight, which, if you can see yourself celebrating, that really
Mhm.
presupposes that you won the fight. And, I started to do all these things totally unconsciously. And there's
Mhm.
another thing, to be completely upfront with you. When I had fights like Germany World Championship 2011, I had 5 opponents before my final fight.
Mhm.
And this was all in 3 days. In 3 days, after so many fights, after so many, well, one of the worst things is low kicks. When you
Mhm.
do kickboxing,
Right.
K1 or MMA, after 3 days, after so many fights, you get so many low kicks that you barely walk. And it's that before my last fight, before my final fight, I was sitting there down in a corner, and I was thinking to myself, oh God, I don't know, I can't even walk. I was thirsty, and I was not lazy, but almost unable to get up, walk, get some water for myself. And I know a friend of mine was in the corner. He was a really good fighter from Bosnia. And when the fight started, you know how adrenaline kicks in and
Mhm.
cortisol and your heart starts pumping. So I got up, and I do not know how, James, before the fights, I actually get that energy to step in and to fight. And I remember second round, that video is actually on YouTube. If you type in Savo Kosic highlights, you can
Mhm.
you can see that fight as well. Second round, this guy hit me, as you said, that that's what their intention is. That it's not an easy sport. They hit you in the head, and they want to see you, fall down. And so anyway, this guy said, you should probably throw the towel in and call it a day, and we can come back or something. And I said to him, well, we can do that, certainly, but I want to, I want to fight. And he had this adrenaline, because my nose was bleeding big time. It was blood all over the place. And he said, and he was putting the adrenaline so he can stop the bleeding. Um, but then I said, I took that adrenaline and I inhale it so that
Mhm.
I got even more adrenaline. I know it was a risky move, because, at that time, when you're fighting, your heart is already beating like
Yeah.
107. And somehow I got that inner strength, because as you know, I think one of the most important things when it comes to anything in life, any like success in the future, is what you truly believe about yourself. If
Mhm.
your identity belief says, I'm a fighter, I'm not a quitter, right? And not a quitter, some people go, I'm gonna eat the whole ice cream, I'm not a quitter.
Mhm.
Not that
Right.
type of thing. You want to have your goals clear, and I really had my goals clear at the time. And I said, I'm not gonna quit no matter what. In the third round, I hit this guy in the liver. We call it liver shot.
Yeah.
And I won the fight. And it was the best day of my life, just because I decided to. I said, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna either live my life. I truly live by this. Someone said once, it's better to live your life, 100 years, right? Right, then it's like every year, every day, repeat your life. So I take chances. As you mentioned, I open up this car dealership as well,
Hmm.
That's what I did after my MMA career. I said, you know what, this was good, but I'm getting older. I'm not going to get any younger. I'm not going to be able to fight as I used to. So, and I have two kids, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and do something for me and my family, and I started a car dealership.
That's great. So that's really interesting that you made the decision, to move on to something else, and
Mm-hmm.
essentially to quit what you were doing and move into something else. So before I get into that a little bit, how did you decide when it was time to make a move, to make a change? Because for a lot of people, as we know, they come to us because they're having problems making a change. So how did you decide, okay, now is the time to make a change?
You're right. As you know, most things in life that we learn are emotional. Most decisions that we make are emotional. Um, you know, a lot of people are book smart. They read things and they think they know it until they get to that situation. My last fight was for Bellator. It was a pay-per-view event.
Hmm.
After the fight, I met my opponent in a hospital. He had brain damage. I had concussion as well, and just the feeling that I got, I said, I think I'm getting a little bit too old for this. And what do I want to do? I asked myself, what do I want to do in the future, and how can I make this better?
Hmm.
And that question really, changed how can I make my life better? What do I
Yeah.
really want? And then that really occurred to me, hey, I've been teaching seminars, telling people to tell me what they want instead of what they don't want. I usually tell them a quick story then, because I realized at that point, if you go to Walmart and you say, hey, I don't want milk, I don't want um, a paper towel, which everybody wants right now. Say you say, I don't want engine oil, and you have a list of what you don't want. It's going to take you a long time to realize what you actually want. And that's basically, at that point, I said, you know what? I have my clear future. I know what I want. And then I go, oh, but it's not completely clear, because a lot of people are afraid of unfamiliar.
Hmm.
Wouldn't you agree with me? Like, they go, I don't know, because it's not safe. But there's this metaphor that says, if you see, future is like a foggy night, and if you can see 100 feet ahead of you, and then you can't see any further, but you walk those 100 feet, and then you can see 100 feet more.
Hmm.
And at that point, what I saw myself as a businessman, I said, you know what, I started from nothing. I made some money fighting and doing all these things. I had my first business was a gym, which
Right.
which was pretty
Understandable,
good. I had
because
200.
you have a reputation, people know you. So of course, first thing would be a gym.
Yes. And then second business was, then I said, well, what's coming, what's next for me? I said, and then I invested all the money that I had in my car business. And
Hmm.
this is a very interesting part. It has everything to do with the future thinking. When I invested my money, James, it's not only that I invested all the money that I had. I invested money that my friends gave me. I invested everything in car business, and car
Hmm.
business was going kind of downhill at the time. This was about 10 years ago, crisis and all that. And
Hmm.
and and then one day I was thinking to myself, I was really, I don't remember when I cried last time, but that was the time when I almost started to cry. And a friend of mine comes to me, my neighbor, who is doing exquisitely well. This guy is selling so many cars, and I was doing so bad. I was thinking in my head, because I lost so much money in beginning with cars. I was
Hmm.
thinking in my head, how many years do I have to drive taxi to give back the money that my friends gave me? Because at the time, I first moved to United States, so I didn't have a really good credit, but my friends gave me money
Hmm.
to start. And I invested my own, lost it all. And this guy comes to me. His name is Rodrigo, my neighbor. He's doing so well with cars. Even nowadays, he has a big car lot here. And he said to me, he said, why don't you come with me and I will show you, because I have been there. He said, I'll show you what to do. I said, well, go ahead. And I would love to learn, because I'm like, nothing is working for me. At the time I was thinking and trying to blame different things. And I
Mhm.
was almost, getting in that blame mindset, government and this is, oh my. But this guy said, come with me. And he said, you're going to buy these cars. You can buy from CarMax auction. You can buy from Manheim. Do this and you're going to do well. And it was unfamiliar for me, but I said, that's the only, it's almost
Mhm.
like I don't have any other options. You know how, like, when, if you burn your own boats, then the only choice you have is, to go ahead and fight for the island, for the land. And that was a fight, literally. Like
Mhm.
that was a part of my life. I know I fought before in the ring, in the cage, but this was really um, a struggle. And so yeah, I started to do exactly what he was doing. I was modeling the guy just the way I was modeling this fighter when
Mhm.
I was a kid.
Right.
And little by little, James, in 1 year, I paid off all the cars on my lot. Everything was paid off. I had a mechanic shop
Mhm.
aside, and I had about 5 to 6 employees. They were really happy because I was able to pay them well. And ever since, the company just expanded and it grew well. So so now I have multiple locations, and I just opened up this dealership in San Bernardino. It's on 180 baseline
Mhm.
um, in San Bernardino. It's the biggest dealership in town. So, but I don't think if I would ever be there if I didn't focus on these incremental improvements that I was making on a daily basis. And I honestly think, James, if I didn't have that mindset of the one that you have, growth and looking in the future, what's next, what's coming, almost as if you can see yourself doing something, and then you just feel the drive to go for it.
Mhm. So let me ask you this, because that's, I definitely, we're going to be giving all the information for the car dealerships and all the other things as well, because, next year I might be in the market for a car. So, I'll be coming out, maybe coming out to California and just driving it back
Anytime, you're
across.
welcome. Yeah,
So
anytime, come over, join me, and we can, yeah.
it's really interesting that you opened a new dealership, a new location, right when everything is locked down. Tell me about that decision, because that speaks to me about somebody who it does look beyond the present to the future. So tell me a little bit about how you made that decision. What went into making that decision, as opposed to holding up, like a lot of people are, just doing the waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, first part is that you mentioned that you would probably be coming to California, maybe looking for a car. If you ever come here, I would love for you to train my salespeople, because I watched some of your seminars where you actually teach sales, and I think that was brilliant. I was
I'll
just,
be out there. You
I
just let me know when we could
yes,
travel. You just call me
definitely.
up and we'll set that up.
Sounds like
Did
a
that
plan.
for another
Thank you for
company,
bringing
and,
that up.
they raised their revenue by $1 million. So I'd love to do that for you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, James. And sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, what was your mindset around opening a new dealership, the largest one in San Bernardino, right?
Mhm.
Especially right now when
Oh,
everything is getting locked down. How did you decide to do that? Because a lot of people are really shutting down things, and you're opening up a new location.
well, this can everything. I think in life in general, everything can be seen as a problem, and everything can be seen as a challenge, and
Hmm.
then eventually it can be seen as an opportunity. And a lot of people go, you know, like our teacher used to say. He says, one day you will just laugh about it. Why don't you just do it now? You know, why wait?
Hmm.
And um, and my mindset is, if eventually you can see the problem as a challenge and that can become an opportunity, why not? Why wait? Why not try to see it as an opportunity now? And if we all just stop and try to see all these things that are going on as an opportunity, because there must be an opportunity. I've seen another day the guy standing on the corner and he's selling masks.
Hmm.
And he had a big box of masks, $20 each. A nice mask, though, but I don't think he pays $20. He maybe pays $2 for those. Okay. And by the time I was back from my workout, the box was almost empty. And then I stopped by and I got masks for myself. He
Okay.
says he had really good sales pitch and all that. And I said, great. He says, you can wash these masks and all that. And that's how I was thinking about the dealership. I was not thinking, hey, you know what? I'm going to get one right now because it's an opportunity. I said, this could be an opportunity. So I went, I spoke to many people and I talked to this gentleman. And this guy, he owns many gas stations and many
Hmm.
other dealerships. And he says to me, he watches news and he was very kind of upset about everything that's going on. And he said, I'm just looking for someone to lease this for next 3 years. And I'm gonna, give him a great price. And it's like, I just want to be able to, to cover whatever he's, because he's financing that as well. And I
Right.
just leased it from him, right? And I said, well, you know what? Let's see. Give me. I'm gonna. I like to wait when it comes to business deals.
Hmm.
We started to email back and forth, started to negotiate. But at the time, I was also negotiating with 3 other people because
Yes.
I believe that choice is power. So that if we have more choices, we have more power in life. And this is true whether you do sales, in relationship, in business, whatever you do. When you have choices, then you go, hey, I can do that as well.
Right.
And he gave me a price that I could not resist. He says, this is for 3 years, and then after that, it will go up. I said, well, it's a part of the game. And then I said, I'm going to have to bring my mechanic shop. It's a lot of work. I said, and everything is kind of closed right now. I said, why don't you give me 2 months free? He says, okay, let's just go ahead and do it because no one else wants to do it.
Hmm.
And I guess that's because when everybody wants something, a lot of people go where the crowd goes. But
Yeah.
I know when I was in Costco, and this was before we had this thing with paper towels and the toilet paper. Okay?
Yeah.
And I went to Costco and I grabbed. I really needed paper towels for my mechanic shop
Yeah.
at the
Of
time,
course. Yeah.
and how important that is. And I couldn't find original blue, paper
Yeah. The
towels for the
blue ones
shop,
that you
so I
get
went to
for the
Costco.
shop towels.
I went to Costco and I bought more of them. I got like 10, 15. And people around me saw me getting these paper towels, and they start pushing each other. And they thought, I guess they thought it's a good price, or Costco is gonna run out of them, right? And they all started to fight. Within 5 minutes, you see this whole pallet gone, and there's no more paper towels. And like, wow, how people are influenced. And then I really started to think about things that you teach. I mean, those things that you teach are brilliant. What really influences people?
Hmm.
Things like scarcity. If there is no more, they go, hey, give me, give me, give me, right? What is that people respond to, and stuff like that. So
Well, that's terrific. So let me ask you this. Then you decided, you were going to move more now that you've got your dealerships going, and you had mentioned you have your setup there and it seems to be running smoothly. You decided to go more into coaching and, hypnosis and neurolinguistic programming and all that, which is where we met. Um, my question to you is, what got you to move more back into the coaching area in addition to just running your business?
well, it really goes back to what Plato said many centuries ago, more than 2,000 years ago. He said something that many people repeated after him. He said, if you want to find your happiness, then you have to lose yourself in service of others.
Hmm.
And I think if we don't share what we have, and whatever that is, it can be a skill, gift. Some people are really good entertainers. If we don't share what we have, then we hold it inside. And well, it goes back to that story from the Bible when God gave 1 talent to one man, gave 5 talents to another good man, and gave 10 talents to this third guy. And this guy who got 10 talents, he said, what a great opportunity. He went out there and he got double. He came
Hmm.
back to God and he said, here, I got more. And God said, you're a really good servant. Keep all of them. And
Hmm.
this guy that got 5, he did the same. He went out, he doubled his talents, and when he came back to God, God said, you're blessed, take it all, it's all yours. But the guy who got 1, he buried it, and he said to God, God, I think you gave me only 1. He was very cranky about it, and he said, okay, God, so I kept it, and here, take it back. So my point here is I think that what we have can be multiplied if we focus on the right thing. They say where focus goes, energy flows. And I think if we just focus on the right thing and think about, a lot of people go, what is my golden path? What is that I should do? What? And I say to them, what is that you would do for free? What is that you used to do as a child that make you, something that makes you really happy? And
Hmm.
these are the things, James, that make me happy when I share the skills and what I know. I'm not perfect. I grow every day. I try to learn new things. I try to learn from people like you and from people who my friends and my teachers,
Hmm.
and so that I can apply that in my own life. And then if I do that, then I would be the biggest hypocrite if I don't share that with people who I think that can learn some things from me.
Hmm.
So that when you do sales, you show me, you come to my dealership, you show me how to do sales, but then you also do martial arts. But maybe you're going to come to my martial arts seminar and say, hey, I can learn something from this guy. So I believe that if we are open-minded, I think mind is really like a parachute. That's
Hmm.
how I think about mind. If it's closed, it doesn't work. It has to be open. And I think open mind is capable of a lot more than we think.
Okay, that's terrific. So let me ask you this then, because obviously you've been working with a lot of people. You're training people, doing trainings as well as seeing clients. And so, what are you helping them with right now? What are people, kind of worried about right now, and how are you taking them through this? Because there's obviously a lot of people just concentrating on, what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, James, I think you probably have similar experience here because a lot of people are locked up in their homes. A lot of people don't even go to the store. They use things like Instacart and they order food and they wait for 3 days for food. Um, so what's happening right now is that a lot of people call me because issues with their spouse or their kids or some things within the family, because all of a sudden they're faced with spending a lot of time with each other, and not many people have the skills of communication, the skills of you know and and that's what I get a lot. And then any change, anything, because our mind always goes towards what's familiar and away from what's unfamiliar. It always goes towards the pleasure and away from the pain. So what they do is now they're faced with something that's unfamiliar, and a lot of people get anxiety and depression, and
Hmm.
these things are very much related. They goes like in a circle, like a crazy eight, from depression to anxiety, depression to anxiety. And it really hit people much harder than I thought. I had some clients that I worked with years ago. They call me and they say, I'm having these thoughts, And then what I deal with now mostly is what they do. They imagine things in their head. They see themselves, being depressed, and they feel bad. They talk to themselves in a way. They give themselves bad metaphors. I had this
Mhm.
lady call me recently. She said to me, I see myself. I said, well, how do you see yourself first? Because it's identity belief is really something that's underneath it. And she goes, I see myself as a junk car. And I said, as a junk car? And I said, how would you see yourself differently to feel better? And she says, I can't. That's who I am. I'm a junk car, and I'm always depressed. Always? I go. She goes, yes, always. And I go, okay, well, let me ask you something. How do you see your daughter? And she says, oh, my daughter. She smiles. She says, I see her as a pearl. I really love pearls, she says. And I go, let me ask you something. I'm not saying that you have to, but if you could, how would it feel for you if you see yourself as a pearl? And she smiled and she says, oh my God, I thought it's not possible. She goes, it's not available to me. And a lot of people are stuck, right now in home, and they think things are not available. But thankfully, I think this is a great time to learn, to study, to read.
Mhm.
This what we are doing right now. I think a lot of people will find useful, and and I think internet nowadays is a big help. So again, what we focus on, we can come out of this as an airplane, or we can just feel bad, and it's like the choice is on us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. I was had a coaching client the other day, and
Hmm.
they're a very big baseball fan. So he's wearing his baseball shirt and all that, and very sad that the season hasn't started. But I said, you know what? For you, this is spring training. This is the time for you to get in shape for when things are going. And he is working. He's got some work. It's obviously slowed down for what he does, but it was a very interesting metaphor for it, because that now is the time to gain new skills, to look at how you can make yourself better, so when things open up, you're ready. You're just ready to
Yes.
go, as opposed to everybody else is going to be starting up again and trying to get some momentum. I think the people who are getting ready mentally, at the very least, are going to have that momentum going into things. They've got a running start,
Hmm.
essentially. So that's kind of interesting, which is why we want to put these things out there and put change people's mindsets. So let me ask you this. What's next for you, Savo? Where or have you decided to take your career, or your many careers?
Well, what I really wanted to do, James, in the future is, besides this car business, this is something that's already going well. My brother knows business really well as well. I taught him. He's 10 years younger than me, but he's
Mhm.
doing really well. And my whole family now, and these people, my employees, that they've been with me for a long time. So this is kind of set. And one thing that I really want to focus on in the future is, James, long time ago, I I used to teach kids how
Mhm.
to fight, and we would do some mixed martial arts. We would do punching bag work, and then we would go run, and then eventually we would all sit in a circle, and then we would talk about their experiences. We would talk about schools, how they do in school, what teachers.
Mhm.
A lot of teachers, unfortunately, don't know. They give them bad suggestions. Another day, I went to pick up my daughter from school, and this teacher looked at my daughter and goes, just because she was playing, and this other kid is sitting, and teacher goes like this, and I looked at the teacher and I said, and teacher goes like this, and I said, well, please, make sure you treat kids equally, give them a little smile, a little,
Mhm.
you know a support, because that's what they need. And so at the time when I was training kids, when I was doing all that, I felt really, really good. Even
Mhm.
though it was really hard, the part of my life when I was doing, I was going to college and doing and working at night as a bouncer. It was really hard, but that's something that made me really happy. and to see those kids grow and to see them being successful. And it's really, this reminds me, I don't think we have time for this, but this story, for people who want to read, it's a beautiful, it's a very emotional story, and it's very inspirational. It's called Teddy's Story.
Hmm.
And it's, and I don't know if you know who Wayne Dyer is,
Oh,
but
sure.
he reads that Wayne Dyer Teddy's Story. It's a story about this child, about how no one was there for him, but they say it's in one person is enough. If one person believes in you, if one person is there to support you, then you can do miracles.
Hmm.
And it's about this one teacher who supported this boy Teddy, and then the rest you can read. And it's really hard to read that story without tearing up. But this is what I want to do. I want to train these kids. I want to talk to them, James. I want to
Hmm.
see them being successful.
Right.
And so what I was thinking is it would be like something like no one has ever done this, but it's something like a confidence seminar or workshop or something like that in between those lines, so that because I can both teach them what to do physically and how to prepare themselves mentally for the future and what's coming. A lot of people linger in the past. They think, oh, because I've done that in the past, I can't do it in the future. And I think that's very stupid,
Hmm.
because at one time, we all used to pee our pants. At one time, we also all used to eat certain food as kids, some vegetables that we might not like right now, and vice versa. Everything changes, I think. In 5 years, every cell in our body changes. And I think change is possible if we believe. And in the Bible, it says, as you believe, so shall it be.
Hmm.
Many times, as you think, so shall it be. And I'm certainly a firm believer of that, and I'm certainly a firm believer of this neuroplasticity that kids have that can do so much, and we need to really give them the care. There is that story about bamboo. If you water the bamboo and you really care about it, and the bamboo gets enough sun, and you're there for 5 years, you're watering and nurturing this bamboo, you might not see the bamboo
Hmm.
going through the ground. But at one point, after 5 years, this bamboo breaks through the ground, and it grows. And it grows so fast. It grows like 30 feet in a couple of days, which is amazing. I think it really tells us how sometimes we need to put enough effort, and to understand that sometimes when kids are are nervous or mad, that they're not doing that against us. They're
Hmm.
just having hard time. They have hard time for themselves. And understanding kids and helping them, I think that's my passion. And hopefully, um, with God's help in the future, I hope that I'm going to be able to do such a thing, to organize those camps and to have enough time to help kids around the world.
That's terrific. That's terrific, Salvo. So, um, how can people get in touch with you, whether they want some coaching, or some sessions with you, or a new car even? I mean, because you've obviously got great dealerships out there in California.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I have a couple websites.
Okay.
One website for my old car dealership for cheaper cars is CosicAutoDealership.com. The other one is for a new dealership is thebestusedcarsales.com. And I think I'm gonna very soon, in a couple of weeks, I'm gonna link all the websites for coaching too. There's one called Clinical Hypnotherapy Center. That one is in Upland.
Hmm.
It's a clinicalhypnotherapycenter.com. But all those websites, I'm going to link to one which is actually available right now. It's www.savokosic.com, so that everybody can see what they a lot of people call me now for business coaching. I
Hmm.
think you get a lot of those calls And yeah, either if they want to start a business, just have, especially car business. I think I can help a lot, not just to prepare them emotionally and for them to get enough motivation and to understanding of like what they're going to go through, but also logically in details I can explain to them how to do it and how to become really good in that.
Excellent.
So it's
Terrific. Terrific. That's great. So, Salvo, I want to thank you, and I'll make sure we get the links so we can put them up in the notes as well. I want to thank you for spending time with us today, and happy Easter. Sorry,
thank
I
you.
didn't say that earlier, but
Thank you.
certainly it is Orthodox Easter today. And any other words of advice you'd like to leave for the audience?
Well, I would just say that since you asked, one of the great minds, Nelson Mandela, when he was in prison, a lot of people came out of that concentration camp, prison. They came out devastated. They came out, having suicidal thoughts, being depressed. But a great mind like Nelson Mandela, the guy who said, having anger inside is like drinking poison and hoping that your enemy is going to die. He really understood really well that being mad at the situation or government or the virus or all these things are really hurting us inside, because this is the voice that's inside of us. And whatever is inside of us is what either heals us or it hurts us. And he was the one visualizing the future. He was the one planning when everybody else was suffering. He was the
Hmm.
one who, and then also all these great minds. There is one Serbian saint. His name is Vladika Nikolai.
Hmm.
Vladika Nikolai, he was also in concentration camp, and he wrote this book. He wrote many books there. He was writing on the walls. He needed to express himself. He had so much love for people, and whatever you project, like, again, really quick. I mean, I think this is very important. Wayne Dyer says, if I have an orange and you squeeze the orange, or I squeeze the orange, or anyone squeezes the orange, what comes out is what's inside. So what he says, Vladika Nikolai, he was always having love towards his enemies. He says, thank God for all these obstacles that I was going through and all these problems and all of that. He says, because he said, the beast that was hunted through the forest by other beasts finds better shelter than the one who hasn't been hunted.
Hmm.
And he says the problems are really what makes us better. That's where we learn lessons. That's when we grow. And he says, either you have the learning from the past or you have bad emotion. So my message here is like, instead of having bad emotions, instead of carrying that with us, let's stop for a moment and ask ourselves, what can I learn? What
Hmm.
can you learn from this time? Maybe, so a lot of people go outside and they try to check out on Facebook and Instagram, and maybe it is the time to stop for a moment and go inside, check within, scan your body, notice how you feel, notice what thoughts you have, so that you can build the life that you want and that you deserve for yourself and your family.
Terrific. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you, doing this, especially today. And I think it's a very timely message. And, we'll certainly keep on speaking about these things and developing new ways to help people.
It's always great to talk to people like you, James. Thank you again, and we'll speak sometime soon.
Definitely, definitely. So, I guess you're going to be enjoying the day out there. It looks like a nice sunny day out in California. So,
Yeah,
I will talk to you again soon.
sounds great.
Okay,
Take care.
thank you.